This is a true story of a ghost who convicted her murder.
It all began in the fall of 1896. This man right here is Edward Trotshoe. He works as a blacksmith in the village. He liked visiting nearby villages, talking to the girl in the village, hanging out in the village stables, and petting the horses. And his all-time favorite thing is to play poker in the saloon. One cold night, Edward murdered someone and stole a horse. At this point, Edward was now known across Pocahontas County for his crimes. He decided to leave Pocahontas County to settle in Greenbrier County to hide out after his recent crimes. Several days later, in Greenbrier County, West Virginia, Edward gets a new job at Lewisburg as a blacksmith. This woman right here is Zona Heaster. Zona's friends made her go talk to the handsome Edward Trotshoe. Photo of Zona and Edward Trotshoe, October 1896. The two arrive at their new home in Lewisburg, West Virginia. The two get along very well over the months.
One fateful day, on January 23, 1897, Edward Trotshoe went to work at the blacksmith.
Zona went to go do her housework, while Edward was gone. She went to the bedroom to gather the cleaning supplies. Meanwhile, Edward begins working at the blacksmith.
After a long day working at the blacksmith, Edward goes home to see his wife, Zona.
Edward arrives home. Zona had just made dinner for Edward. Edward gets so mad at Zona because she didn't put any slice of meat on his plate. Edward punches his wife, Zona. Zona fights back. Edward then proceeds to choke her. Then he snaps her neck, sealing her fate. Edward then leaves home silently. Edward walks off to work at the blacksmith.
Edward Shue tells a kid to go check on his wife. The kid goes and checks on Zona, but finds her on the ground dead in the kitchen. The boy runs to Mr. Shue and tells him that Zona is dead. Edward tells the boy to go get the doctor.
They had a funeral for Zona Heaster Shue and buried her in a cemetery nearby. Her grave is here. A few days later, across the mountain in Sam Black, West Virginia.
Mary Jane Heaster's home.
Mary Heaster is Zona's mother. She lived in this big house across Sewell Mountain from the Shues. Mary Heaster was about to go to bed. She started a fire to keep the home warm. She walks up the stairs. As soon as she falls asleep, the door opens. The ghost of Zona Heaster Shue appears in the dead night. Zona walks in. The floorboards slowly creak. Her mother wakes up, seeing the ghost of her dead daughter. Mary asks Zona, "How did you die?" No answer from Zona. Zona spins around to represent how her neck was broken. Then Zona whispers, "Edward killed me." Zona disappears in the dead night, never to be seen or heard from again. The very next morning, Mary goes to the sheriff to reopen the case. This man is named John Preston. He is the county sheriff prosecutor. Preston thinks Heaster is crazy about the ghost sighting she saw. Regardless, he's willing to reopen the case. The very next day, Preston finds Trout Shue. A huge pursuit began. After a few minutes, Preston caught him and is bringing him to the court. Trial to testify for Zona's murder. One harsh winter. The trial for Zona's murder began. Many hours later, after many minutes of arguing among them, the jury has finally came to an agreement. They soon found Edward Shue guilty of murder. He was sentenced to life in prison. The life sentence for Edward begins. One day in prison, Edward decided to look outside. The snow is falling. A few years later, March 13th, 1900, a guard found Edward Shue dead on the floor. After his body was discovered, the guards buried him in a cemetery nearby, but was never given a grave marker ever.